Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends Haslab Giant Man. This figure was the topic of some contention when it first was announced, and I guess when the whole Haslab thing ran its course, and I made a video about that. And if you want to see what I said about it back when they first announced it, I'll put that video up in the top right corner or in the description, depending on where you're watching. But, I'm going to give you guys an honest review with as much information as possible, setting aside any personal feelings, because I'll let you know, I actually enjoy the figure. I enjoy it quite a lot. I'm glad to have it in my collection. That doesn't mean it's a perfect figure. And that's not what reviews are for. Reviews aren't meant for me to just tell you, oh, I like it. Because who cares? I'm going to tell you if it's actually good or bad based on how they executed what they were trying to do. And some of it is good, for sure. And then some of it is absolute garbage. And I'm going to talk about all of it. So if this is the type of video that might offend you, you might not want to watch. If you're the type of person to get mad and say, hey, how dare you criticize Hasbro? I want them to be friends with me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, then this isn't for you. And if that offended you, well, you just confirmed what I was saying. That's not what reviews are for. If you have an affinity towards a particular company, great, but that doesn't mean everything they make is perfect. And I'm going to tell you what's not perfect about this and what is good. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't have a stand to take him off of because he's too dang big, but we can go ahead and get into things. So first thing I'll do, because this is going to be awkward as heck, is just wing it. All right, we're going to wing it and see what happens. We're going to set him down. I'm going to slide the box over, and we're going to look at the box briefly. Front of the box has some nice artwork on it for sure. It's a big old box, and it fits the figure in it, and so it's a big box. There's not much to say about that. There's no window or anything, which they could have done, by the way. That would have been kind of cool, I think. Instead of having this painting, a window would have worked the way they had him laid out in there, but whatever. So you get the painting there, you get the Avengers stuff here. It's fine. I don't know if anybody's buying this for the box. Kind of doubt it. And then on the back you get what is basically a diorama piece if you wanted to use that. It's quite narrow though, so like I'll put him in front of it. I don't know how useful that's really going to be. You'd have to get really creative with your photography for that to be a worthwhile endeavor. I don't think there's anything inside the box. If there is, like a cardboard thing, if there is, then oh well, I'm wrong about that. But yeah, so it's a fine, gigantic box. Now that that is out of the way, we can look at the figure, and we're going to get into the aesthetic, but first I want to do a question of the day. Which version of Giant Man is your favorite? For me, it's the one with the white on his antennas, not the black, and as long as it's red and blue, I don't really care which version. I don't care that much. I've never been like a Giant Man aficionado, but I like this one. I like, where is it? I like this one. I don't really care, as long as it's not the red and black solely. That one doesn't do anything for me. Okay, so let's talk about the aesthetic. First thing I have to note is it seems to me they screwed up the blue. I looked through all the comic images I could find in the course of a couple minutes, and I can't find any where this blue is what he looks like in the comics. It's either like this, or like the photos they actually showed of the figure during the Haslab. He was never this purpley blue. He was much bluer, more like this blue, which is a much better blue for him. It doesn't have to be this one with the little bit of yellow in the blue, but either way, to me, this isn't the right blue, so that's irksome. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely a thing, okay? That's the very first thing I noticed right out of the box for this guy. The second thing I noticed, we're going to get some of the bad stuff out of the way first, guys. Hasbro does not care about what they're doing. This is a $200 Haslab, and his knees, you can't see it from here, let me do this. His knees still don't match. How did they manage to make the knees not match? By not caring. It's almost all bare plastic with a little bit of shading added. Therefore, if they're not painting it, they can't make a match properly. They got kinda close, and it looks way better on camera than in person, but if you own this figure, you can corroborate the knees don't match at all, at least on mine. Not only are they way less shiny than the rest of the bare plastic, it's a different color. Elbows are the same thing. I'll move the camera back up so you can see that. The knees and elbows not matching is just absurd for a figure like this. For a Haslab $200 figure, not okay. Not okay at all. And then the last thing I want to mention about that sort of thing is the head is a different color than the body. It's not dramatically different, and it may not be easy to see on camera, but it is a thing. The head is way more yellow than the rest of the body, and you're going to say, hey, it's red. What do you mean? There's yellow in red, depending on how you want it to look. This red has way less yellow in it than this. This is on its way to orange. It's not orange, but I'm saying that's how you can consider it. This has more blue in it compared to the yellow. If you know color theory, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you can just see the difference, hopefully. It's a different color. So that's a bummer. Now, good things. Let's talk about a couple good things real quick. We'll bounce back and forth so that we don't lose people too fast. Algorithms. Okay, so good things. He is textured throughout his whole body. That's generally a good thing. I'll zoom in right here so you can see. There's texturing. A bad thing about the texturing is the scale of the texture. It's not the same everywhere. It's not a big deal, but he's got more spread out dots in some places and smaller ones in others. So it's just like inconsistent because they didn't care, I'm guessing. I don't know, it could be the different plastics, but either way they could have accounted for that. They didn't. Another thing to note, the different plastics are noticeably different colors. Still not as bad as the head, but like this doesn't match some of the other parts, so that's an issue. He's pretty shiny, as you can see. Now, the lights are making him look a little bit shinier than he probably would to the naked eye, but he is fairly shiny in some places. It's a bare plastic thing. They didn't do what they needed to do to make him look good. The shading is nice. I like the way they added the shading. It's almost everywhere, especially on the red parts. It's not perfect. You might see, yeah, you can. You can see here, there's like a streak going right across. Let me zoom in. There's a streak of shading right here in his arm that doesn't quite match anything. So it's like, it's not a premium figure, guys. I want to make that very clear. It is a large Marvel Legends figure that has a few things that they don't normally have. I mean, there's a little bit of shading on him everywhere, so that's obviously a new thing, and not a bad thing in general, but it's still not a premium figure. We're going to come back to the price after we talk a little bit. So, things that have paint on them. All of the red has shading. None of it is fully painted. This has no paint on it. The belt does. It's not the cleanest thing in the world, but there's a little bit of shading throughout. And then the trunks and the other blue spots have black lines on them. That's a generally good look. That's fine with me. But just like the one thing on the arm, the lines don't quite match with the folds. And they didn't put anything at all, wrinkling or painting on his peeper area. So you get a fair amount of black all the way around. And then this area right here, it's kind of bright. So it might stand out. You might have a kind of a strange look going on. And then they did paint his boots too, just like the trunks. Let's focus on the boots. There you go. There is the black painting on there, and it's fine, but the boots do have a lot of gloss on them. Same thing with the gloves. I'm not sure that was intentional. So it's like, oh man, you can really see the shoulders not matching the rest of the figure right there as far as the color goes. So yeah, the color is not great. Not great at all. We'll talk about the head paint job in just a minute, but first I want to talk about the proportioning, because we're still in the aesthetic section. It's exactly what I said it was going to be when they showed it. It's better than their average Marvel Legends figure by a lot. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But it's still not great. He still has relatively low shoulders, a big head, not as heroic proportioning as he should have based on the comics. People like to always say, well, this character is this and this character is that, so it makes sense. No, it doesn't, because it has to match the comics. They already drew it. It doesn't matter what the character's backstory is. Somebody told me Daredevil shouldn't be that muscular because he's just a lawyer. They draw the comics. We know what he's supposed to look like. We don't have to guess what they think he should look like based on his career. That's not a thing. Anyway, he's not as heroic as he should be. He's better than most Marvel Legends. Personally, like as just a collector, I would prefer him to be better looking in terms of the musculature and the anatomy, but I'm still fine with it. It definitely looks better, so that's okay. Alright, so now that we've talked about that, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a height comparison, and we'll get an actual measurement for you guys in just a minute. I'm going to set this guy up right here. Old school Build-A-Figure. I almost called him Daredevil. Giant Man. And then also, I want to just bring this guy out as a little bit of a comparison. I'm not bringing out Sentinel or Galactus because I can't just fit everything on the table and it's not worth it, because who really cares? He's a little bit shorter than Sentinel. Alright, so let's move him over here. Okay. So we have a Build-A-Figure right here, back when Build-A-Figures were still pretty cool, and we have one of NECA's 18-inch figures. This guy was about $130, that guy was free, and this guy is $200. Okay, so now that we're doing the height thing, I can talk about the price thing briefly. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but I'll do it. I'll give you the height measurement in just a second. I want to talk about the price thing. I don't think $200 is unreasonable for a figure this size if it's well executed. It's kind of like the same situation with the Hulkbuster and Odin and whatever else I've reviewed lately from them that fits this. It's, if they did a really good job, fully justified. I think $200 is fine for a figure this size. But it can't have mismatched knees and elbows and weird painting and the wrong colors and weird anatomy. Even with the anatomy, I could live with it, I guess. But the other things, the head being a different red is so obvious. And then the shoulders and like all the different reds, it's just too obvious. It's not right for $200. The fact that it's all bare plastic other than some kind of shoddy shading, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. So for $200, it would be totally worth it if they did a good job. They didn't do a good enough job, if you ask me. Let me go ahead and get the height measurement for you guys, and then we'll move on. Speaking of not doing enough, as I'm getting this measurement going, just wait till we get to the accessories. That will help you understand how it's not enough. But alright, let's do the height measurement. He goes just about 2 feet, like almost exactly 2 feet. And that's going to be, 61 centimeters? So he's got some size to him, for sure. It's definitely a good size figure. And again, price would be fine, if not for the lack of quality. Okay, so let me zoom in on the face. I want to talk about the face a little bit for the aesthetic, and then we'll move on to the accessories. I wanted to do the face last because that's where the accessories go. Alright, I put him in a seated position so I can handle him a little bit more easily here. So for the face, there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. I don't hate the overall shape of the head. I think it's fine. I think it looks like he doesn't have ears. So it would have been better if they did that a little bit, but otherwise it's okay. I still have the same problems I had before in that the shape of the face in order to make the mask work the way they did is a little bit weird. His nose sticks out super far, and then he's got that shelf of the mask sitting on top. It's kind of strange. It's not a big deal at all, but it's a little bit strange. Otherwise, the head shape is okay. I still think they have some issues with the spacing on the eyes and the size and things, but generally I like the main head well enough, the main faceplate. That's okay. By the way, if you're wondering why he's sitting funny, it's because he doesn't actually sit flat. He's actually sitting on his knuckles right now to lift him up because they didn't make him able to sit down again properly. So yeah, the face is okay. Don't mind it. The skin's glossy. Not too glossy, but it is glossy. I guess you could say sweat or whatever, so that's fine. The lips are painted. I don't have a problem with painted lips. I think that looks okay. The eyebrows are okay. But we do have this issue of interchangeable faces and eyes. And the main thing, I guess there are two main things. One is a design thing, one is an execution thing. The main design thing is the mask part, the cowl, doesn't change. So having the different expressions doesn't really work. His eyebrows right here are going to be in that furrowed position no matter what face you use, so that's a little bit weird. And then the other thing is the eyes. The eyes that are on him right now are meant to be the eyes that are looking straight forward. So, that's clearly a problem because he's freaking not. He's not looking straight forward at all. I do generally like that head sculpt. Like, if they didn't screw up the eyes, I could look past any of the other little nagging issues, but the eyes, what the heck, Hasbro? So, okay, let's do the aesthetic rating and then we'll move into the accessories. Aesthetically, for $100, 9 out of 10. For $200, it's like a 7 at most. Because all the mismatched plastics and bare plastic and cheapness, and then the wrong blue, arguably. I know they made the cover of the box match the figure, but I'm positive I don't like that blue as it being accurate. Anyway, I'm going to go 7. I'm just going to round it down to 7, round it up however you want to look at it, to 7 for the aesthetic. Too much money for what you get. Now, as far as accessories go, you get the neutral head, the neutral face. They all swap out, the head stays. Neutral face that comes on them in the package. You get the smiling head, and then you get the angry one. And so they're all well enough done, other than I don't like the spacing of the mouth and eyes and things. I think it looks a little bit creepy weird. And I get it's kind of supposed to, but not on all of them. So anyway, you get those. They're all done well enough. That's fine. And then you get interchangeable eyes. You get one set of eyes that are supposed to look forward, one set of eyes that are supposed to look to the side, and then one set of eyes that are looking down some, like they go with the high, lower eyelid to make him look crazy or whatever. The problem is, the eyes are on these little plates. And if they're not painted perfectly, you can't do anything about it. They just sit there. I mean, it's well executed, the way they're clear, and you can see the iris and everything. I love it. I love the idea of how they did it, except for the fact that they shouldn't be on plates. They should have just been articulated eyes. You should be able to just move the eyes, and then you wouldn't need these interchangeable plates. then they don't have to worry about painting them properly. We've had interchangeable eyes or posable eyes on figures as small as Figma and Revoltech. They definitely could have done it on this guy, easily. They chose to use these plates, and then they screwed up the paint job. So none of my faces can look straight ahead. And the straight ahead face, the eyes don't even go in the same direction. So it's like, for $200? No friggin' way. No friggin' way. And then the other faceplate you get is the zombie one. I'm sure some people are in love with this, and most people are thinking I don't care. Let me know. Do you guys care about the zombie face? It's not something I could care less about. At all. It's well enough executed, and it has its own set of eyes, so that's fine, but I just could not, I have zero use for this. I mean, I wouldn't use any of the alternate heads, but not including the scroll head. That's annoying, and not including oh man, I can't think of her name. Wasp, whatever her name is. Not including her for $200 at this quality is just absurd. So anyway, the last bit of accessories would be the interchangeable antenna thingies. You get a set that are in black, obviously the white ones, and then you get the zombie ones. So that's it for $200. It's just not good enough, especially since they couldn't execute. They couldn't execute properly, and so I can't even make my figure look straight ahead. That's nuts. That's nuts. So, that sucks. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, I do a rating. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Poorly executed interchangeable eyes and faces. Not good enough for me. Not good enough for me. Alright, let's talk about the articulation. The head, I'm going to leave him in a seated position because he's too dang tall. I talked about this in my first video. They were going to enhance the neck articulation, guys, by having a cutout back here. And I said, hey, on Instagram, I said, what, are you guys actually doing that for the final product? I wasn't even being rude, and they didn't respond, of course. And they changed it a little bit. It's nowhere near as ugly as it was, but also he has very little range. Again, I don't know what Hasbro's deal is, but he can't really look down. That's as far down as he can look. So you can see his chest. Like, he can look down, but not a lot. Like, he's very tall, so it would be nice for him to be able to look down a little bit more. Looking up, though, of course, not as necessary. It's just the bare minimum. They did a double ball peg and executed it poorly again. Even on a $200 figure that's all new parts, and they get to basically do whatever they want, they chose to not do a good job. Leaning side to side. Yep, that's it. He can't lean his head side to side any more than that. Of course he can rotate, but they did not do a good job. It's a double ball peg, so it's not the worst thing in the world, don't get me wrong. But what the heck? What the heck? How do you manage to not do a good job on a figure like this? This is the one time you have an excuse to do a good job, Hasbro. That's nuts. Okay, so let's talk about the shoulders. I'm gonna have to... I'll do it like this, I guess. Let's raise the camera up. These big ones are so awkward to review. I wonder, I've never watched anybody else review one of these kind of figures. I wonder if everyone struggles like me or if I'm just a dingleberry. Okay, so for the shoulders, we get a butterfly, which isn't the worst thing. It goes back pretty well. Alright, you get decent range going back. Going forward, it's still minimal. It's better than not having it, I suppose, and the outfit kind of hides it, so it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best, but it's totally okay. Alright, this is, by the way, it's connected at the belt, but otherwise it just floats around. So for the shoulders, obviously very ratcheted. You can get them up to horizontal, so that is fine. And his shoulders are higher and broader than most Legends, so it looks good compared to Legends, but not compared to what it should. Just want to mention that as we're doing the shoulders. You get your full rotation, everything's ratcheted in there, that's good. Bicep swivel is okay, it's not the best thing ever. Double jointed elbow, actually really nice. So he gets decent range out of that elbow. They did it well. They get a little bit here, most of it down here. That's a decent elbow for what it is. And it's all ratcheted, so that's pretty good. Now, for the hands, which is where they get all of their POA, which is like kind of an annoying thing for me, because it's misleading to people who aren't paying attention, but it's fair, technically. So wrists have a swivel, of course, and a hinge. I would have expected like a ball hinge or something on a $200 Hasbro figure. I mean, not on a Hasbro figure, on a figure that's good for this price. Having more versatility in the wrist is good. You almost never need this range. Almost never, but whatever, that's what they did. And then you get the articulated fingers, which, by the way, I had to use a hairdryer to get them to move. Please don't try to move them without warming the plastic first, because they will break, for sure. They're tiny little joints, and they're very stiff. but each one can rotate and has a hinge. As you just saw me straightening it out, it's well articulated. If you want articulated hands, they're gigantic though. As I mentioned in my first video, the proportioning on this guy is weird. Big head, big feet, giant hands, skinny legs, that kind of thing. I've talked about it before, and it's obvious here too. His hands are huge, and big hands can be a good thing for comic characters, but not when they're this big. Like, they're humongous, and that's because of the articulation. I don't know how much people really wanted the articulated fingers. Let me know. Let's do another question. Do you care that much about articulated fingers? Is doing a couple of poses, like with the middle finger out or something, worth it to you? Or would you rather have had just some actual straight-up hands that are posed and not enormous? For me, they're too big. But they're well articulated and well enough sculpted that they're functional, they're good. So I can't complain about the engineering, it's just that it made them huge. Alright, so let's move on to the torso. Oh, gosh. His hips feel nasty to move, by the way. Has anybody else noticed that? I hate moving this guy's hips. Don't worry, I'm going to get him back in the frame. He's so awkward to stand up. He has the issue that McFarlane figures have because of the ratcheted ankles. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But alright, let's raise this up and talk about his torso. He has a diaphragm joint. It's way too loose, though. Everything on this guy is incredibly stiff. This is very, very loose. Now, luckily, it's at the top of the figure, not at the bottom, so it probably won't be a huge detriment, but it's very loose. Now, as far as range goes, forward and back is not bad. Side to side is really good. You're going to get rotation out of it, so that's good. But that's it for that. Now, you have this, the upside-down ab crunch here. That will help him lean back. So he can lean back all right, and their ab crunch is placed low enough that it doesn't get super weird looking. And it's hidden by the belt, so I'll take it. I mean, I still don't like that joint without a waist twist, and we'll talk about that in a second again, but it leans back all right. Leaning forward, he leans forward enough. Again, these figures are not much better than giant Marvel Legends. This guy can't sit well. Why won't they make these giant figures able to sit? He's the tallest non-robotic looking guy on Marvel Legends, and he can't really look down very well. I mean, he can, but you can't stand him like that. It's just not enough. It's not enough. There's no reason the torso is that limited. Okay, and then there's no waist twist. No waist twist. So it's just the diaphragm with the reverse ab crunch. They're not doing anything premium with these figures, guys. It's not even, like, it's a fine example of that set of joints, but it's nothing special at all. Not even a little bit. Alright, now let's move on to the hips, which are the nastiest feeling joints I have ever felt, I think. Everything on here is fairly well ratcheted. The shoulders have nice ratchets in them. Most everything does. But these right here, I don't know what they did. It feels like chewing gum. Going out to the side, that's fine, but also, he has incredibly limited range, and they're not placed properly, so you get these weird divots in here, and so that sucks. He has... How do they... Okay, whatever. I'm done. I'm done questioning how they did a bad job. It's because they don't care. Now, that part's fine as far as the joint feels, but going forward... Oh, man. It feels like you're moving through mud and gravel. I don't know what they did. There's no real ratcheting. It just feels like... It's nasty feeling. And on a figure this size, it feels like it's gonna break. Oh, it's so gross. I hate the way that feels. But as far as range goes, he can bring his leg up to horizontal. So that's okay, that's a good thing. They put the thigh swivel in right here. That's fine, I don't mind that. That makes sense. And then for the knees and ankles, let's just move the camera down some. Alright, for the discolored knees, mismatched knees, heavy ratchets, good range, no problem. Proportioning is good on the legs, I will give them that. They finally did that pretty darn close to right. So that's a good thing. That's not a me thing, by the way, that's like an actual anatomy thing to have the legs be proportionate, so, you know, you can't get mad at me for being the messenger. Ankles go pretty far back, that's good. They go pretty far forward. I like that they accounted for that right here. It's good enough. Let's get this one out of the way so you can see. So yeah, you get decent range there. And then the ankle rocker, they just really went all out and made it horrible. It's so steep that... Here, I'll hold him like this. Gosh, he's heavy. It's a really, really steep ankle rocker, so you're not going to get a lot of use out of that, probably. And then the toe hinge is well placed. It's okay, but they did leave that big gap in the foot for no reason. So that's not ideal. Alright, so that's it for the articulation. Let me get him back into a pose so I can try to get him to stand. Alright, okay, good enough. Let me do this. And this. And we'll look up at... Oh no, we won't do that. Okay, there we go. There's Giant Man, everybody. Being taller than everyone else, but looking off into the distance because his eyes don't point in the right direction, and he can't really look down unless you make his whole body lean forward. Okay, so, final verdict on the articulation. It's, for $200, man. 6. It's a 6. It's not even as good as normal Marvel Legends articulation. They have regular Marvel Legends that articulate better than this guy. It's not enough. And don't even come at me with the, well, look how much plastic it is. The plastic is not the main cost of action figures. People like to bring up the size all the time. No, that's not a thing. I mean, obviously you have to pay for plastic, but that's not what makes a figure expensive. It's nuts. If that was the case, Marvel Selects would cost like 4 times as much as Marvel Legends, and they don't. Alright, so time for the final verdict. Is this a fun enough, good enough Giant Man figure for your Marvel Legends collection? Probably. Is it worth the money? No. No, it's only a big Marvel Legends figure with ratcheted joints. They didn't do a good job on really anything. They didn't get the finish right. The articulation isn't very good other than the hands. The sculpt is okay. It's better than average, but not good enough. The interchangeable eyes don't work because they're googly. The colors are off, maybe. I don't think it's maybe. I can't find an image where he looks like that other than the one from Hasbro, but not even the photo of the figure. Their photo of the figure was a different color blue. So, yeah, they didn't really get anything right other than it exists, and the price isn't so crazy that people just balked at it. I think Marvel Legends collectors are going to justify it in their collection. I would, if I wasn't a reviewer. I mean, if I was just a collector, I would be justifying it. Because it's good enough. It's nowhere near good enough for the money, but it is good enough to have in my collection. It's kind of like what I was talking about the other day. They're two different categories. Am I happy this thing cost $200? No, not even close. But what I wanted in my collection regardless, yes. So let me know where you guys fall on that spectrum and what you think about the figure. I'm willing to bet, since this is expensive and a Hasbro product, there are all kinds of people saying it's the best thing ever. And I'm willing to bet there are all kinds of people saying it's the worst thing ever. It's somewhere in between. It's neither. Obviously, but to me it's just not anywhere near good enough. So if you're tracking this thing down secondhand, or whatever they call it when you buy on eBay, be aware, it's not going to make you the happiest person ever, unless your only goal in life is to have a large Marvel Legends figure. I wouldn't go crazy on price. I have no idea what they're selling for on eBay. I wouldn't go nuts on it, guys. You're going to be really disappointed, because it's not worth the original MSRP of $200. I'll give it an overall rating of, it would be a 7 if the eyes weren't screwed up and he could look forward and he wasn't just bare plastic, basically, with shading on it, but not painted plastic is what I mean for like the main colors. I'm going to give it a 6. It's just not enough. And if they did the few things right that they were supposed to do, it could be an 8 or a 9. But they screwed up on almost every front, and there's no way I can justify that. I know some of you are probably thinking you guys buy $100 Mayfix figures or $400 Transformers from Flame Toys. Yeah, it's not the price. I mean, it is, but it comes with the quality. You have to have the quality. I'm starting to think there is paint on this black. I thought it was just crappy molding, but there's actually little spots of gloss on it, which is probably not better. It's not better. Do you see the discoloration in a few spots? I can't tell if they did that on purpose or not. It's weird if they did. Anyway, yeah, it's not about the price. I don't mind spending a lot of money on toys. It's just that they have to warrant it, and this doesn't. Other than in size. That is really it. So, I don't know. If they included Wasp, then you'd have a whole different conversation on your hands, but they didn't. It should have never been a tier. Was it even a tier, or did they just not include it because they wanted to sell it later? I don't remember. But it should have been included from the start. And that would have justified the price significantly better. Anyway, okay, that's enough for me. That was a long video, and you guys have better things to do. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, but that's it for me. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos just about every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.